Okay, here we're going to be looking at the second part of the writing from test number 1 of book number 16 of the set of IELTS books from past papers of the IELTS exam. And here we're going to be looking at the part 2, as I've just said, and that's the one that you spend about 40 minutes in the real exam. But obviously in this case, because we're going to be talking about the verbs I use, or the nouns I use, or the adjectives I use, or the grammar that I use, I'm going to be taking a little bit longer. But ideally, obviously, in the real exam, you would limit it to 40 minutes because you've spent 20 minutes on the previous task, and the total time for the writing is 1 hour in the real exam. So let's look at the steps that we would take when we first turn to the part 2 of the writing. And you may be wondering, what would I do? Would I start with part 1 or part 2? Personally, I find part 2 easier, strangely enough, because I'm so used to writing essays and just getting my ideas down. In fact, I enjoy part 2 because I like to express my opinion, let's say. So I always start with part 2, in fact, and then make sure that I finish quite quickly, and then I've got 20 minutes to go. Not finish quickly, but make sure that I'm watching the time. 20 minutes to go. Right, enough. Part 1, let's do it. Okay. But it's up to you how you approach this. So in writing task 2, remember 250 words, and let's have a look at this one on the left. Okay, at least 250 words. So in some countries, more and more people are becoming interested in finding out the history of the house or building that they live in. What are the reasons for this, and how can people research this? Okay, and interesting. It's not a typical question, in fact. This is an unusual type of essay, in a way. It's more like an article. It's sort of got an unusual structure to it. So you might expect to see this sort of thing inside a magazine. Okay. So in some countries, more people are interested in finding out about the history of the house or building that they live in. What are the reasons and how? Okay, absolutely very important to make sure that we answer these questions. And so before I start writing anything on the left-hand side, I'm going to just generate some ideas. Okay, so for number 1, which is reasons, and number 2, I write it down here just because it just makes it very clear for me that I need to what I need to do. Okay, so what are some of the reasons? From me personally, I can understand why. A feeling, it could be they would like to know more about their own home or the house or the building that they live in, because it's a chance to tell others about the building. So people might come into their house or look at from the outside of the house and look into it, and they'd say, oh, that's such a lovely shape of a window. And you can say, well, that is the style of windows from the 1930s in this particular area of London, or whatever it was. So actually that gave me another idea. So chance to tell others, interest in architecture. Okay, that can be one of the reasons. If you're interested in architecture or history in general, some people are very interested in history and historical buildings. They may be one of the reasons why they want to do it. And also, I would say, give them a sense of belonging or a sense of appreciation. Let's use the word belonging and appreciation for where they live. Okay, that's enough. For where they live, right? And how do they do that? How do they find out? Well, that's a good question, actually. I would say there are websites on, for example, reddit.com. I have heard of people who, I think it's one of the subreddits. So it's a website within a website where people can submit photos of their houses or the buildings that they live in, and people can at least give some sort of historical background to that building, at least the style. They can say, well, that's most probably built in 1890s because of this feature. Okay, so online forums, that's the word I want. Online forums, people actually, experts, maybe not exactly experts, but they're amateurs that have become experts. You can also, I guess these days, there probably is AI. There might be, there's certainly an app for identifying rocks and identifying plants. So it would not be surprising to me if in the near future you would have an AI where you can click a picture of a building and it will either tell you exactly who built that and when and where and how. That would be amazing. In fact, I've just got an idea for an app. Or at least based on the style of the building, give a general idea of where, when it was built. So AI app, I'm going to just add here. And then we've got online forums, so these are individual people, and then history of the history. Okay, so it's not just the style. So I'm going a little bit off course here. History of the building. So who built it, for example. So you could find out on, if you really wanted to know, most cities, at least in Europe and then in North America, you have access online. Whoops. To building information in the city council website. Okay. Some countries are better than others about this, but I think it's possible to be able to access that sort of information. There certainly are old maps you can access of your city. Certainly in London, I've done that before, and you can see, oh, there wasn't a building there in 1860, but there was a building there, and it looks the same shape as this one in 1890. So sometime between then it happened. So access online to building info and maps. Okay, but maybe not information about the architect from the map, but if you're interested in the architect or the design firm, then that would be possible. Okay, we've got more than we need here because there's 250 words. We can't fit everything in here, and we would need to be able to whittle it down. Let's add that word, whittle it down. We'll have to whittle it down to something a bit more manageable. And what I would probably, I'm going to choose one from one of these three on the left-hand side. I would say, I think that's an important one, a feeling of belonging and appreciation. And this one. Otherwise, yeah, let's leave that one out. And then I could talk about the AI app, but it says, how do people do this now? I'm not sure about the AI right now, so I'm going to leave that out. So now we've got more than enough to go with in terms of the number of paragraphs and etc. So when I just said about paragraphs, I'm talking about main body paragraphs. Okay, so the way this is laid out, I would certainly have an introduction and certainly I would have a conclusion. That's the case with any piece of text that you will be making or writing in the IELTS exam. But the first main body paragraph, I would probably talk about two reasons. I've got them there. And in the second main body paragraph, I would talk about how, and that would be the online forums and access online. In fact, I might move that one to the top because that's more likely to get you much more detailed information if you live in a certain area of the world where the government or the municipality, and municipality, if you're not sure, it's another word, if the municipality keeps detailed records like that. Okay, but now we have to start the actual writing. We're running out of time here. Okay, in some countries, so what we're going to do now is paraphrase what is written at the beginning, because we're doing it, although I said this might be a magazine article, really what we're still doing here is an essay, and an essay starts with something like, this is what I'm going to talk about, and this is what I've discovered, very general, repeat that at conclusion, etc. So we can't use the same words. If we do use the same words, the examiner will take a pen and cross out any exact wording that is taken from the question itself, from the rubric. Okay, so I have to use a different phrase. So if I use in certain countries, that's better because I can't cross out some. We can't cross out the whole sentence because in certain countries that phrase is acceptable. So let's use it. In certain cities and countries, now more and more can't use, and more people can't use. So increasing numbers, increasing numbers of people are becoming interested in finding out, are showing interest and interest, let's use that, in finding out, discovering. We're using a Latin form of find out, which is the Germanic form. Remember, English is a combination of two languages, groups at least, language groups, the Latin-based languages and the Germanic languages. And we've always, I don't think I've ever come across a time when I can't use either the German version or the Latin version of that. And if you subscribe to my IELTS step-by-step mastering vocabulary course, you will come across a lot of the Latin-based forms because they are slightly more academic than the German-based forms, which you may have learned as you learned English. But if you're a French speaker, you may find that actually the Latin-based forms are easier for you: French, Spanish, Italian. Okay, certain cities and countries, increasing numbers of people are showing an interest in discovering the history, in discovering when and who let's check that out, when building was built, whoops, was, not is, who built or designed it, designed it, and who lived in it. Now, my question, I was going to say in this essay, which is a very typical thing. In this essay, I will be describing, but this is not a typical essay. So I'm going to use the word text, which is more general, to get away with that. In this text, I will be discussing. Die means two, so 2 points of view. So actually, that's not a good word because it's a word is discussion only when it's an essay. I will be suggesting, that's better, ways that this can be done. Let's say this information can be discovered, that this information can be, we've used the word discovered already, discovering. This information can be revealed. and why people seek. Now, in the previous video, if you saw the part 1, sought after. One particular appliance was one particular appliance was sought after. Sought is O-U-G-H-T, is the past tense of seek. So look for, another way to look for. And why people seek such information. Such information. Let's just use that word again, but I'm using an advanced reference, which is the word such in this case, and so I'm confident it'll be okay to repeat the word information. Okay, why people seek such information. Now, quite a detailed first paragraph. You've already covered off a good there's 6 words across here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm not going to count that one. So 6 by 7 is, what is that? 7 by 7 is 42. Is that right? So that's why I'm an English teacher. Okay, but it's a significant number of yeah, I think it's 42. Okay, now let's talk about the reasons. And I'm just said it. Let's talk about the reasons. Now that is in spoken English. If I was talking about this in detail in a speech or a talk, right? Let's talk about the reasons. But I've got to use it more formally. I want to introduce the reader. Okay, I'm going to be talking about the reasons for this now. So what do I do? Okay, so here we would say let's say in terms of, okay, let's just say one reason why people are interested in this is because, so one is because, sorry, one reason is because, these work together. One reason is because, let's do that one as the first one, and then this one's the second one, is because, now I'm going to use a gerund. So it's a gerund is a type of, not a verb, not a noun, something in between. Okay, and I need to use this. It's going to be a new subject of the sub-sentence or sub-clause, technically sub-clause of this sentence. So one reason why people are interested in this is because knowing who called the house or building home. Okay, so this is an idiomatic way to say who lived in it. The person who I call, let's say, currently I live in Hungary, so I call Hungary home. So a way to say I live in Hungary. Okay, so this is what it's doing here. So knowing who called the house or building home before them allows them to, or gives them a sense, let's use gives them a sense of belonging and appreciation for that. Now I've used house and I've used building. So we're going to use the word home because that's the feeling of being at home, the feeling of that's your home. So you're going to have the strongest sense of belonging and appreciation. So I'm going to be using that instead of house or building. It gives the sense of belonging and appreciation for the home, for their home. Let's use that. I'm going to use the word personality. And I'm going to use more of a general, I'm going to use a conditional here with the word if to show off my grammar. So if you, not you, but the general you in English is, we can also say if one does this, but it's very formal and it's a bit archaic now. It's a little bit like from the 1800s or certainly before 1960s. It's a little bit archaic, so we still use this. If you know who designed the building you live in and the previous residence, you'll not you, sorry. Okay, very advanced grammar here. Let's have a look at this. Just came into my head. So we're going to use what as a subject. What is simply brick and mortar? I'm going to write the whole sentence and I explain. What is simply brick and mortar becomes something with personality. Okay. If you know who designed the building you live in and the previous residents and who the previous residents were and who the previous residents were, what is simply brick and mortar becomes, so what is currently just brick and mortar, brick made of clay, mortar, I'm going to add up here, that's an old way of saying cement or concrete. So what's brick and mortar, and that is a set phrase, or it's, no, technically it's a collocation, brick and mortar, or a chunk, common chunk. So brick and mortar means just a building. It becomes something with personality. Okay, so I've added one reason, a sense of belonging and appreciation. I said one here, so I think I'd like to add the second thing also. Comma, and obviously a small f. So let's do that because I know that there will probably say it's okay, but also if you know who designed the building you live in and who the previous residents were, what is simply brick and mortar becomes something with personality. Okay, I like that. I've got one reason up here. I've got another reason up reason here. Now I need to do a single sentence just to wrap it up. Okay. And this could come in with a chance to tell others, which is my second reason there. There is something, I'm using it with something again, but that's again, it's an I there. Put another I there. There's something pleasurable, enjoyable. Let's use enjoyable. This is sounding more and more like a magazine article. I thought what would happen in the end, because it's difficult to do an essay style. There is something enjoyable about being able to, okay, again, this is a gerund. We've got it here. Knowing is a gerund. And it's a gerund because about is a preposition and any verb must convert into a gerund after a preposition. Okay. There is something enjoyable about being able to able to tell a story to any guest who shows an interest in your homestead. Okay, a homestead, it's not just the building, but the surrounding areas. Okay, and that's where in this one here, where the maps come in, you might say this used to be a farm. This used to be an orchard or an orchard, yeah, orchard. Okay, so we've spoken about, we've covered this in the first paragraph. Okay, now we're going on to how. Now, I'm worried to make it sound too much like a magazine article, because I was going to say something like, you may be interested to find out how we can do this, and that's very article-y sounding. You may be interested to discover. So we're not going to do it that way. I'm wary to go too far that route. So many people, new paragraph, right? Many people find that online forums such as, now I happen to know this. I'm probably a lot older than some of you doing this, so I've been around the block, another phrase, been around the block. So I know about these things like subreddit. But the great thing about the IELTS is that you can completely make up information. Remember, they're testing your ability to speak English, not your ability to know things about the world, although that does help, certainly. But if I'm quoting numbers, or if I'm quoting a study that was done in the 1860s or something, I don't need to know that. I can just completely make it up, and the IELTS examiner is not allowed to say, oh, well, that's not true, I've never seen that study before. They're not going to go on the internet and check whether you've made that up or not. So we're going to use that here. I know that there is a subreddit on reddit.com that does do this, but we're going to make it up completely. And I'll just show you that you can do this and get away with it. So many people find that online forums such as I'm going to just make this up. Who's my house? Now, of course, that doesn't make sense. Who is for people, right? But I've just set up here that the house becomes a personality, right? It means it's become a person. So who's my house? Well, sounds like a good idea for a website. And actually, let's take that out. It's not a forum. A forum is where people individually, we chat and discuss, and it's maybe amateurs plus a few experts. But many people find that online websites, so this is a dedicated website, imagined, it's not real, don't try and look it up, such as Who's My House, and of course we can't, I'm going to rub that out because we're not allowed to use apostrophes in a URL or a website address, so we can do this. But such as Who's My House allow people to upload images of their home. And now I'm going to imagine this Who's My House as an AI generated thing, because things taking over the world, AI, and an AI, artificial intelligence algorithm, an AI will give increasingly accurate, because AI is getting better and better every week, day, will give increasingly accurate information about when the building was likely built, in what architectural style, and it's nice to have three things. That's very typical. The triangle is a strong thing in mathematics and architecture. So I've got information about when the building was likely built. I've got a comma there, in what architectural style, and I need a third one. Some people say an Oxford comma is important here, some people don't. I'm going to put it because I think it's a good place to put it, just before the and. Likely built in what architectural style, and what else could it tell us? And let's imagine this AI is really amazing, because who knows? And even the architect respond, and even sometimes, okay, because that would be amazing if it could do it for everything. Sometimes the architect responsible for the project. And even, you could add, and even in more in buildings that are in the city centers of Western Europe or something, but let's leave it that way. Okay. Right, so that's, and then we're going to do, talking about this one here. Yeah. If more detailed information is required, many municipalities especially in North America and Europe North America and Europe. Running out of space here. Let's see if we've got. Okay, that should be right. Especially in North America and Europe, have digitized, made digital, made scanned in. If you know what that means, you got a scanner. You take your normal bits of paper, you scan it in, and OCR, optical character recognition, that measures the doesn't measure it, converts the wording into actual searchable type. Is very clever, and it's true. This is what a lot of municipalities and cities, city councils have done in places like the UK. They have digitized their spelling, their building records. They've digitized their building records, which allows people to do what? Find their home on on old maps. Some even show detailed, that's an E, They show detailed floor plans. That's the technical word. So architectural plans in a way. Detailed floor plans. Floor plans, one word, of certain buildings. On top of this, information about the previous residents can be found. Can be found. This that's enough for this paragraph. Okay, now we're going to do conclusion. And conclusion is always a mirror of the first paragraph. So let's just read it again. Certain country increasingly showed interest in discovering when the building was built, who designed it, and who lived in it. In this text, I would suggest in ways. Whoops, that was very, very good. I double check that this information can be revealed and why people seek such information. Okay, we'll come back to that. We'll read the whole thing right at the end. Okay, so here we're going to be doing a conclusion. I said it's a mirror, so a conclusion always has a reflective, how can I say this? It reflects what you've said in the previous paragraph, but obviously in different words. Okay. It can be seen. It can be seen. Why have I said it that way? Oh, because this isn't a typical essay, I'm finding it a little bit tricky to add this, to end this. It's a bit of a tricky task, this one. It's not a problem and solution essay. It's not a just giving reasons. Okay, I'm going to start from scratch. So in certain, not referring back to anything. So I'm just going to go. It's okay. Right, from general interest in architecture to, so from to wanting to discover wanting to discover which individuals or families occupied their own home. Okay. It's from this to that. It is, yeah. It's in general interest in architecture to discover which individuals or families, not of, or families occupy their own home. It's obvious why people are increasingly fascinated by the story Going very literary here, by the story that the four walls surrounding them. Now, those of you who get a bit confused, there must be a verb. Where is the verb? Can't find the verb. Here it's coming. Can tell. Fascinated by what? Fascinated by the story. What story? The story that the four walls surrounding them can tell. I found myself suddenly thinking I want to write something personal. I certainly would. Okay, not essay-ish. That's why again, the magazine article wants to come out from this text. From general interest in architecture to wanting to discover which individuals or families occupied your own home, it's obvious why. What am I doing? Sorry. It's obvious why people are increasingly fascinated by the story that the four walls surrounding them can tell. I want to say something wrong. And why not? It's human nature. Now I'm sounding very much like the magazine article. Okay, but that's a very... Okay, I just want to read through it because I found a few mistakes there. Okay, in certain cities and countries, increasing numbers of people are showing an interest in discovering when a building was built, who designed it, and who lived in it. In this text, comma, I will be suggesting ways that this information can be revealed and why people seek such information. Okay, just 1 second. I can hear my dog wants to go out. Okay, let's have a look at this. One reason why people are interested in this is because knowing who called the house or building home before them gives them a sense of belonging and appreciation for their home. Also, if you know, okay, so we're allowed to use them and you in this way. Also, if you know who designed the building you live in and who the previous residents were, what is simply brick and mortar becomes something with a personality. You can use it without, I just like it, a personality. There is something enjoyable about being able to tell a story to any guest who shows an interest in your homestead. I like that. Okay. Many people find that online websites such as who'smyhouse.com allow, okay, that's rubbish. People use, that's weird. As I was about to say, find that forums are useful. Find something useful, okay, but we didn't use useful here. So many people use online websites such as who'smyhouse.com, which online websites and apps such as Who's My House, which allow people to upload images of their home, and an AI will give increasingly accurate information about when the building was likely built, in what architectural style, and even sometimes the architect responsible for the project. If more detailed information is required, many municipalities, especially in North America and Europe, have digitized their building records. I think there's probably a better word for this, but can't think of it, which allows people to find their home on old maps. Some even show detailed floor plans of certain buildings. On top of this, information about the previous residents can be found. From general interest in architecture to wanting to discover which individuals or families occupied your own home, it's obvious why people are increasingly fascinated by the story that the four walls surrounding them can tell. And why not? It's human nature. I like that. I think this is a strong semi-essay article-y type thing. Let's just double check that we're not under the number of words. I'm going to find a very general sentence length. So there's one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have the same as before. So 7 multiplied by 6 up there, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that's 70. That's about 90 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's more than enough. That's way beyond 250. We don't want to write too much. We don't have enough time to write too much. But there it is. There's the general essay that would get you, I mean, of course I'm going to be biased, but I think this is a strong 8.5. Sorry, a strong 8 and maybe an 8.5. Is it a 9? Probably not. I wasn't, this is a type of text that isn't an essay. As I said, I didn't want to dive directly into the magazine article style. So maybe an examiner might say, he's got a general idea, but it's not what we were looking for. But this is definitely at least an 8, hopefully 8.5. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I hope that was useful for you. Thank you.